All right, everyone. Welcome to Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, with a call-in show on a Saturday night. I apologize for being about 4 minutes late. It was about 8:35, and I thought there would be no issue with me uh, recording a video, my ACC coaches rankings. There would be no issue. I had 25 minutes to do it. Well, I talked for 25 minutes on ACC coaches, and it took me 25 plus minutes to rank the ACC coaches. So my apologies for jumping on the line a little bit late. I also wanted to prepare some material and look to see what was going on with spring practice and maybe some other college football news before I jumped on. But here we are with nothing prepared, but that's okay. We'll talk college football for the next who knows how long, depending on your calls, to 860-325-3687. Also, keep in mind that if you're telling those folks out there who want better college football coverage, if you're telling them about Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, then let them know that we're on audio as well at Podbean, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify, and iTunes. Also, you can support the channel by doing your Amazon shopping by grabbing the Amazon link in the description section of any of the videos. And you can ignore the product there. Just do your Amazon shopping using the links there. And if you're like me and you don't do the shopping in your home, which I haven't in the past, then you get that link to the person that controls the shopping. And you do your Amazon shopping right there. Patreon. Yes, we're on Patreon. Mark Rogers TV on Patreon. Please join us right there and help us build our community there. We will start doing live streams over there as well, the beginning of April. And, of course, our newsletter. Yes, we still have a newsletter. I know I need to get working on it. I was so faithful during the regular season to post a newsletter each and every Monday during the season for those 15 weeks. And I've only gotten a few newsletters out since then, but we'll get back at it. So my commitment is only to send a newsletter every so often during the off season. There's just too much going on elsewhere in building the channel, but the newsletter is still viable. We still want you to be part of our newsletter community, the voice of college football. So please subscribe to the newsletter. It's absolutely free. Send your email to mine at MarkRogersTV@gmail. Just send your email to MarkRogersTV@gmail. I'm not going to clutter up your inbox. If anything, I need to get you some newsletters. I'm not going to clutter up your inbox or do anything stupid with your email. You're going to have my email address as well. So send your email address to mine at MarkRogersTV@gmail, and we'll get you the newsletter, The Voice of College Football. And if you'd like any back issues, we can certainly dig those up. I've released 18 newsletters since the beginning of the 2018 season. 860-325-3687. Let's check out the live chat. Also want to let you know that, of course, the super chat is on if you'd like to contribute to the voice of college football and keep us going. Let's see who's in the chat. Also want to remind you of some of the recent content we've posted, which would be Big 12 and Pac-12 coaches rankings. Also a number of spring reports from various camps across the country. Also, of course, our conference rankings a few weeks ago. And after I get the coaches rankings done, we're going to have schedule rankings on the way as well. I also thought tonight I would look at best non-conference matchups for 2019. And also, this could be a little tricky, but in the spirit of March Madness, maybe I'll put together a 64-team college football bracket and make it the upset bracket. It's not going to be any fun if we just make it the 64-team bracket and go through the chalk, because we'll wind up with Clemson, Alabama, Georgia, and Ohio State, or maybe Oklahoma or Notre Dame in the Final Four. I'll do a reasonable upset bracket, an NCAA upset bracket, college football style. All right, let's see who's on the line. Ramon, thank you so much for that. I appreciate that, because basically what we're doing here is that I work a job 45, 50 hours a week. I do this for 40 or 50 hours a week. So I'm working about 100 hours. I don't know that that's sustainable long term. This is what I'd like to be doing all the time. I will be also purchasing, I promise, here very soon. I've gone through a number of reviews to try to get the best and most affordable camera and lighting and microphone equipment. That's an upgrade. So you're going to see me a little bit better, which may not necessarily be a good thing. You'll see the wrinkles a little bit clearer. But we definitely, in comparing what I produce here to other YouTube channels that are of a decent size, I've got to upgrade the production quality. I'd like to get a new mic, new camera, new lighting. And so I'm going to invest in that very soon. I've been researching those on Amazon, and we'll come up with some better equipment. And I'd also, as I mentioned the other day when I pulled out some of the magazines, that I'm going to select some college football themed Sports Illustrated and sporting news from the past. And I'm going to, I don't know how it's going to look. Maybe I'll have to back up and use a little bit more wall. And I'm going to put those in picture frames and put them on the wall, but it might be a little bit too cluttered. We'll see. Ramon, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Very much so. It's going to be put to good use to keep us on the air and going. All right, let's see what you guys have. DeAndre, thank you so much. I appreciate it. What is good with you as well, DeAndre? Thank you so much. I appreciate it. That's exceptional. So let me look through and see what we've got. Auburn football's on the line. 2019 Auburn's year. We've talked a lot of Auburn football here in recent days. And Auburn's just in a difficult position. Being in that state with that other program, with that guy in charge of that program in Tuscaloosa, that has just got to be tough. Gus Malzahn hasn't made it any easier on himself by getting his team to the national championship game his first year. So taking over a program that went winless, can you imagine Auburn going winless? That's still difficult for me to comprehend. We're not talking about Vanderbilt. Auburn went winless in the SEC in 2012, 0-8, 3-9 overall. And then very next year, they came within a Kelvin Benjamin touchdown grab in the back of the end zone from winning the national championship. So he set the bar awfully high right out of the gate. And since then, they went 8-5 and went to the Outback Bowl the next year. Then they went to the Birmingham Bowl. And so you got 2014 and 15, and you had another 9-4, 8-5 kind of season. Well, that was actually the season. Yes, they went 8-5. They lost to Baker Mayfield in the Sugar Bowl. Probably should not, as an 8-4 team, made it to the Sugar Bowl, but that's the way the slotting went that particular year. And then, of course, the 2017 season looked like they pulled off one of the great feats we've seen recently in defeating two number one teams in 3 weeks. But that was soon forgotten after losing to Georgia in the rematch by 3 touchdowns and then losing to UCF in the Chick-fil-A Bowl. And then they go 7-6 this past year. Or did they go 8-5? 8-5, 7-6? Yeah, I think they were 7-5 in the regular season, so they won the bowl game decidedly. And 8-5 for Auburn. All right. So, yeah, Auburn football checking in. And I hope you have checked out our recent videos and conversations with Joe Hunk from 7:40 a.m. And maybe that's one of the reasons why you found us here, Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. And as I enjoy doing every live stream. Auburn football, welcome to Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Thank you so much for joining the team here, the family here at the voice of college football. Thank you so much for that. This is the first time I've seen your handle. I would love to know. I'm going to go out on a limb and guess that you're a big Auburn football fan, and I would love to know how long you've been watching. I released a poll, not a poll. Yes, I did release a poll. I'm getting mixed up here. I did release a poll the other day asking all of you to let me know what team, if there was a team other than your favorite team, if there's another team that you would like to see us cover, then list that team. And of course, they only give me 4 options, so I tried to list the most popular teams. I took Ohio State, Alabama, Florida State, and somebody else, I think Clemson. That's where I need the comments. So I'm going to look through those comments. I already have, but I'm going to let it go for another few days, and I'm going to see how many responses I get to see who you guys want to see in addition to your favorite team. So I wish that there was a way that I could gauge favorite teams of everyone. If I could take all my subscribers and have them all write in and tell me who their favorite team is, and then maybe somebody else that they would like to see, or in addition to their favorite team, let's say their favorite team's Texas A&M. Do they want to see me cover the SEC, or do they just care about Texas A&M? I would love to take in that kind of information because that would help me out tremendously. Chuck, chill out. I can't tell you how much I appreciate the contribution. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. You're welcome for the great content. And we hope to do even better content. I sat down this afternoon and I thought, man, I am just knocking myself out doing content as I typically do. You guys, I think, noticed that I can't think of anybody else out there that produces 119 videos in 1 month. And that's basically a normal quantity of content. But I got to start. I liken myself to the preacher on Sunday. If you have a preacher at church who just gets up and preaches on Sunday, but he didn't read the Bible the whole week, I got to start reading the Bible a little bit more. That's another subject. I do need to read the Bible a little bit more. But in the college football analogy, I need to be reading more, taking in more information. I'm relying on my knowledge base, but I got to find a way to kind of scan what's going on. And I just basically took an hour and just kind of skipped around to different major programs and tried to catch up with what the news is coming out of spring camp so I can jump on some of these stories. I am not going to be the person, nor should I be, to break a story. I've had people suggest that I should be trying to break stories. That's not why I'm here. And that would be foolish to take that on against major news organizations that have thousands of people working for them. No, what we do here is analyze the news and analyze the results. So I need to jump on the breaking news better than I have, and I will try to do that. But again, Chuck, I appreciate it. Once we get done with this series, ranking the coaches that I've ranked within the conferences, and then we'll rank the top 10 in the nation. We're going to move on to schedules. And that's going to be a big undertaking. I'm going to rank, as I do every offseason, all the schedules in Power 5. An added bonus this year, because people want this, is I'm also going to project everybody's record. All right, let's get to it. I've taken all that time to respond to one comment. D. Howard. Yes, the U family is in the house, and I thank God for you people. Miami football, you have been good to me, and Miami football fans, you have been good to me. Groon, nobody's going to Patreon, dude. Groon, we had this argument. We had this. I hope it was more of a discussion. I hope you understood my point. Did you understand my point? My point is that if nobody goes to Patreon, I'm not fine with that. Of course, there's a reason I'm doing it, but that's going to be the way it is. And I'm not going to sulk or be disgruntled about that. I will continue to churn out content here. The point I made to Groon, who was ripping on me in the comments section of one of the videos, to basically say, yeah, go with your 5 people to Patreon. I'm not coming back, or whatever comment you made, Groon. And Groon, I appreciate you. You comment all the time and you watch the videos. So let's just ease off a little bit. You're not going to agree with everything I do. It's okay. It's all right. I made a Patreon page. It's okay. All right. The point I made to Groon was you can look at it one of 2 ways. You can either say, Mark, I like your content, but I get enough here. Why would I pay $5 a month over on Patreon to get a little bit more? I totally get it. You are in charge of your wallet or your bank account. You do whatever you want with your money. I totally get it. I totally do, believe me. But you can also look at it this way. I am providing all this content, which means here, and there will be some additional on Patreon. And you could look at that as being worth $5 a month. I don't know. You can look at it either way. It's fine with me. Like the videos, comment, subscribe, share the videos. I enjoy that contribution. I appreciate that contribution as well. So it's all good. But Groon, lay off the Patreon thing, or we can keep talking about Patreon. It's somewhat amusing. All right. Auburn football. Bo Nix going to tear it up at Auburn as a freshman. Ramon, again, thank you so much. We're having a good time tonight. DeAndre, again, thank you so much. Auburn football. Who you got winning tomorrow, Auburn or Tennessee in the championship in basketball? So I actually watched the last 5 minutes of the Tennessee-Kentucky game, and it was very impressive what Tennessee did in coming back against the Wildcats. And of course, one of the big players for the Wildcats was out the last 5 minutes, and I am not up on college basketball whatsoever. If we would have been doing this channel 15 years ago, I would have been able to bam, 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 talk about college basketball. I probably would have known 3/4 of the rosters in the top 25, but I am checked out. I have nothing against college basketball. I just don't have time for it, and it just doesn't interest me at this point. But I did sit down. Like I say, I was working on MarkRogersTV stuff, but I flipped on the games, and I caught the last 5 minutes of that game. I can't even say I watched Michigan State, Wisconsin. It was on the TV. I have no idea what happened, except Michigan State got a big lead, and they held on, and they won. But so I would assume, based on what I've seen of the rankings and some of the results this season, based on where I work, it almost by osmosis, some of it seeps into my head that I would think that Tennessee would win the SEC championship in basketball. I would think. Deep Barat, good to see you. The Beast 96, good to see you as well. The Beast, you're the best. The Beast is the best with the goat symbol. Ramon, Mark, you got first ever super chat. I follow Zoe, Pigskin, Catfish Lou, and so on, but this is my go-to. Well, I appreciate that because I've got great respect for those other folks. I don't know who Catfish is, but I'm sure they're doing a nice job. But Uncle Lou does a nice job, and we're all very different. We had Pigskin Pete on a couple weeks ago, but unfortunately, by the time we got him on, we only had about 5 minutes, and he was jumping on the issue with Brad Crawford reporting that Dabo Sweeney had said that PEDs were a problem in the Clemson program. So anyway, we just knocked out the one subject, but I would love to have Pigskin Pete back on to talk Clemson football, especially in the middle of spring practice. And I talked to Uncle Lou just the other day and would like to have him on sometime this week. I talked to Zoe today. I've talked to all these guys, but I don't know Catfish. But I do know who Catfish Hunter is. Raise of hands. Who knows who Catfish Hunter is? Raise of hands. Does anybody know how many games he won in his major league career? So my encyclopedic knowledge of college football used to apply to baseball as well. Got a call coming in. Catfish Hunter, I'm almost positive. I could look this up, but you guys look it up. Catfish Hunter won 224 games with the A's and Yankees and lost 166, and I believe had a career ERA of 3.26. If NCIS Fanatic 21's on the line, he would look that up. All right, it's Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football.
What's up, Mark? How you doing tonight, man?
Hey, DeAndre, how are you?
Good, man.
Thank you so much for the contribution.
Oh, man, you're great. I need to find out how to get on what you call a
Patreon. It is Patreon.
I need to find out how to get on it.
So it's spelled Patreon, patreon.com. Yeah, check it out.
There's another guy. I got just as much respect for him like I do for you. I contribute to him, and he got a site. So,
who was that?
Broadcast his name because it's Top Billing. So y'all both do a great job. He does a great job with film work, and you do a great job with the statistics. Y'all both do a great job. So I'm gonna get on both of y'all sites and see what I can do and help out, contribute for you to keep growing your show.
Well, I appreciate that, DeAndre. Thank you so much. Alonzo sent me a text yesterday that you would have loved because he read an article about the ACC versus the SEC and how the two conferences have performed against each other over the last couple of years. And he spewed out a few facts. Some of those I corrected, but at the same time, he had looked over these numbers, and I wanted Zoe to come on and us to talk about it and match up the SEC and the ACC because it sounded like an interesting article and discussion. But maybe we'll do that at some point soon. And I thought of you immediately because Zoe was, of course, defending the ACC.
Right. Well, and I'd always go back to this, and I know the SEC, because of the population growth, people moving back down the South is the most dominating conference there is right now. It's like ACC football and basketball. You know, there's no question that there's the best in the country right now. But my problem is that you got programs like Clemson, Miami, Florida State. I even think Georgia Tech is in there. And I know I give Carolina way too much respect, but Carolina's eventually going to get back to being a decent school, but so is Virginia Tech. So you got like 5 or 6 teams that could probably equal to what the SEC has to offer. I know, like, I think LSU and Carolina played a couple years ago where Carolina was kind of decent. I think LSU ended up winning that game. I think they played in Atlanta Beach Bowl opener or something like that.
That was against Georgia. That was against Georgia when Jacob Eason was there. Really good game. I think it was like 31-27. Yeah, that was Georgia.
Oh, okay. But I just think that they could equal that amount, especially that Georgia Tech that got rid of the triple option and they can get some players in there. But, I mean, you just look at Clemson recruiting. I mean, I saw you talk about the guy to Maryland earlier, but not just him. They get the #1 quarterback next year, and the country is supposed to be coming to Clemson, and they're comparing him, I don't know because of baseball, but to Kyler Murray. And that's amazing that he may have to redshirt and wait for Trevor Lawrence to play. And I know, what's my guy name? Bryce. He was a number 4. He was a number 4 passer quarterback coming out of high school, I believe, out of Grayson High School. So you got a lot of talent and coming through Clemson and a couple of those other schools that's going to rival. And people say, well, the SEC beats themselves up, but also the SEC doesn't have. I'm not going to use the word elite, but they don't have to be good quarterback play that causes matches up with the SEC pretty well, and especially in the next couple of years, I think we're going to see a big difference.
DeAndre, you bring up the quarterback play in the SEC all the time. Do you want me to cut a video where I compare the SEC quarterbacks to the ACC quarterbacks? Should we do that?
Yeah, I think that would be very interesting.
Okay.
Because I can't really remember your direct quotes on Bentley. I don't think Bentley's a bad quarterback. I thought South Carolina was pretty good this year. I don't think the guy out of I think the guy at Georgia's pretty good. I think Tua's pretty good, but the guy at Florida's terrible to me.
Yeah.
LSU quarterback. I know people were talking about how good he is. I don't think he's any good. I mean, I don't know unless Miles holds him back, but I mean, he transferred out of Ohio State because he wanted to play this year. I guess he wanted to show that he was good as Dwayne Haskins, but I mean, to me, he wasn't. But I don't know if that's because of that. Fitzgerald out of Mississippi State, I think he's okay, but I mean, he's more of a running quarterback, not really a passer. I didn't think Stidham fitted Auburn's offense. I think we had that conversation when he transferred, and everybody was like, well, they got this new quarterback, and he's going to give Clemson some trouble. And Clemson sat him like 10 times, and I just don't think he was a good fit for that the Auburn type of offense. I don't know why Gus Malzahn wanted him, but I mean, you look at Williams and a couple other guys that's in the ACC. Perkins is pretty good, and we know Trevor Lawrence. Everybody already said that it would come out now, he would be the #1 quarterback taken, which I think is an over exaggeration personally, because he's only a 19-year-old kid and he only did it for 10 to 12 games. And I know everybody said, well, they did it against Alabama. But Alabama, all defensive backs, and the depth of Alabama wasn't that great this year, like it has been in years past. So, I mean, that's a lot of stuff that we got to look at right there before we start saying Trevor Lawrence is better than a couple guys that's been there for a few years.
Yeah, so I'm not going to promise this because I've got a lot of stuff on my plate. I'm going to rank all sorts of stuff, but it would be interesting, and I'd have to do it two ways. I'd have to go back to 2018 and line up all the quarterbacks in each conference and rank them and kind of pit them against each other. Then I would have to project toward 2019 because obviously a lot of them are leaving and have already left. So we'd have to do both there. DeAndre, are you buddies with Clemson alum 98?
Yes.
Okay. It's funny because every time I do a recruiting video, he jumps all over me about my recruiting rankings. They're not my recruiting rankings. I let him know constantly that I go to the 247 composite. That's just kind of been my standard because I figure it takes all of the recruiting services into play and they put it all together, and that's the composite. So that's what the rankings are. They're not my rankings. And he makes a comment to me all the time about my rankings.
Well, I think the way Clemson recruits players is a little bit different than what Alabama and other teams do it. They take Clemson recruits for need. They don't recruit just somebody just because they're a 4 or 5 star. So I think it's totally different. Like, the class that Lawrence was in, that probably was the best class in Clemson history, considering that Lawrence and what's the guy that transferred to Ohio State now from Georgia?
Justin Fields.
Justin Fields. Well, Beasley was the 3rd best player behind those two. Not Beasley. What's the guy that's there now? The defensive end. I can't remember his name. I said Beasley.
Who are we thinking of? The defensive end where?
At Clemson. He's a freshman. He was a freshman this year. He didn't play that much. He was the 3rd player behind Lawrence.
Oh, yeah. Let me look him up.
I can't remember his name.
All right. Yeah. I know who you're talking about.
And then the kid out of Winston-Salem, North Carolina, he was the number 10 player in the country. And then you got Cam Jordan. So I think that's what people don't look at. Clemson just don't recruit players because they're a 4 or 5 star, but I think their best players, their core players, lined up with anybody. They got a corner last year that was one of the top corners that didn't even play. I think he redshirted or he was hurt or something. He didn't even play this past year. I think it ain't Goodrich. So, you know, you got Cam Jordan, who was the #1 player in Ohio, and then we all know about Ross. So, I mean, Clemson does it. Their recruiting totally different than everybody else's. You know, I can give you another example. Boulware, I don't think he was I think he was a three-star linebacker coming out of college.
Yep.
He didn't even get an NFL look.
And obviously, Hunter Renfrow is the classic example.
There's another person I was going to use too. Hunter Renfrow, Boulware, that Carter guy. The Carter guy out of that they said because I remember Kadiki was recruited at Clemson first, and he had committed and he changed over to Ole Miss. And they said Carter was recruited for that purpose. He played cornerback. He's not in the NFL right now, but I know that was one of the guys that they talked about. But you know, but I just think that we're gonna do pretty good in recruiting. And 2020 is shaping up to be really, really nice for Clemson in recruiting. It's gonna be ridiculous if they do get all those people like they did last year. It's gonna be ridiculous what they do, especially if the guy's willing to redshirt and wait for Trevor Lawrence to leave, and he come in his redshirt year if he is as good as people say he is.
I was going through some of the top players today, and I was reminded because Ohio State has a commit from the top left tackle in the country, who is the #1 rated player in Ohio. But of course, just last year, the #1 rated player in Ohio had committed to Ohio State, and then he flipped to Clemson, Jackson Carman, who should get some playing time. I don't know that he played much this last season, if at all. Are you talking about... Hey, DeAndre, are you talking about Tyler Davis, defensive tackle? Is that the kid you're talking about? Defensive end.
Yeah, he came out with Trevor Lawrence and I had to get on my computer and look now. But I thought he was the #3 defensive end, #1 defensive player in the country. And he was #3 player in the whole country. And he came out. I can't remember his name. Dang it. And he had a sack against Syracuse. The last play of the game against Syracuse, he had sacked the quarterback. I can't remember his name to save my life.
Huh.
But he's really good. And he was the #3 player in the country behind Trevor Lawrence and the kid that transferred to Ohio State. I can't think of his name right now either. When you work 80 hours a week, man, you forget a lot.
Oh, I hear you. I hear you. So you're talking about, wait a minute, you're talking about Xavier Thomas.
Xavier Thomas. I don't know why I call him Beasley, but yeah, he was the #3 person behind those two.
Yes.
And then he was the #1 defensive player. And I think Ross was the #1 receiver in the whole country, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, he was.
Out.
Yep.
#1 player, Alabama. Yeah.
Yeah. So in that class, you got.
Clemson alumni,
yeah, in that class, you got Trevor Lawrence, you got Xavier Thomas, you got KJ Henry, Jackson Carman, who we just talked about, who was the #1 left tackle in the country, and then of course Justin Ross. My goodness, yeah. Darian Kendrick. Who's that?
Kid out of Winston-Salem, North Carolina. I want to say his name is Kevin Henry. He's a weak side defensive end, and he's a beast. I mean, he played tight end and.
Yeah, just mentioned him, KJ Henry. Yep.
Yeah. And I can't. I think the name of the quarterback was Goodrich, and he's supposed to be highly recruited too. He was highly recruited also. So I mean, Clemson does do a good job of developing. I mean, we all sit around. Clemson alum and I was talking, and we tired of hearing Alabama. Everybody knows Alabama's the kings of college football for the last at least 12 years, and throughout history, outside of Princeton and Yale, you know, they're the kings of college football. And, you know, these excuses that they made, Nick Saban wanted better recruiters, and that he didn't go get the what's that called? He didn't have people that does strategy and stuff like that. You get tired of hearing all those excuses. I mean, it's like,
well, yes.
like, man, come on, man.
anything, DeAndre, that was stated on my show concerning the national championship game and any kind of excuses toward Alabama, that's exactly what they were. Because yeah, there are different things that go on, and different teams have different levels of health and injured players. And yes, maybe Alabama's schedule was a little bit more difficult down the stretch, but that was 6 weeks later, and they had both just played two good teams 7, 8 days before that. I'm not going to say whether Oklahoma or Notre Dame was a better team. They both played really good teams, and Clemson had a little bit better time and was a little bit more dominant, but Alabama had a fairly comfortable win, and they were both should have been prepared for the game. So, yeah.
Right. And you know, I will let you go. Well, there's two more things I want to ask you about. But, like, Boise used to do this to teams, too, and Alabama has done it, too. They played the good teams, the teams that's supposed to be good, the first week of the game, and they played some weak skit teams, and everybody like, well, you got all this time to prepare. Like last year, Clemson and Alabama. And I'm not saying that Clemson would have beat Georgia or nothing like that, and they would have, or Oklahoma. If they, I thought Alabama, you're getting it saving all that time to prepare. I mean, he go just about beat anybody. I mean, I can't remember the last time he lost a game when he had a long time to prepare for somebody. Like one guy was saying, I don't know if it was on your show or not, but like, why do they always get LSU the week before LSU off? But like they had a whole summer to prepare for Florida State, and Florida State we know won't that good because and eventually we saw they weren't that good, but it's like they get all this time off to prepare for teams, and they find all these weaknesses about them, and then when they have a short time or something like that, they don't do as good sometimes. But that's what I've seen out of Alabama. And Boise State used to do the same thing. Everybody said, oh, Boise State, dominant program. But they played one good team early and had the whole summer to prepare for that one team, and then have a whole bunch of weak teams to play behind it. Back when Boise was going 11-0 and 12-0 and stuff like that. And that's just how the system works. But, that's what I've seen out of them. But,
well, that's something. Yes, sir.
I'll go ahead. I'll let you go.
I was just going to say that's something that we'll just never know. We can only speculate whether we take a Boise State from 10 years ago when they were at their very best, or a TCU at the same time under Gary Patterson, or now what we've seen with UCF the last 2 years. And if we just plop them down in the middle of the ACC or the Big Ten or the SEC and said, go play a conference schedule, I think we're reasonably on target with saying that they would be competitive. They'd be really good. Look, they are competitive with those teams. We saw UCF just annihilate Pitt this year, but they are isolated games. They would get worn down. They don't have the depth to deal with those teams. They don't have the top end talent to deal with most of those teams. But I would think that they would finish in the middle of those conferences. I think that they would go 7-5, something in that range. Most of them, most of those cases that we've seen elite teams in the group of 5.
Right. Now, Mark, I know you got a whole lot on your plate, and this might be impossible to ask. But before the summer is out,
yeah,
I would love to hear you talk about. And sometimes when I work and don't have nothing else to do, I look at old games. I would love to hear you talk about the 1984 BYU team, and I think it was Colorado and
1990.
Georgia Tech. Yeah. Was that? Yeah, I would love for you to hear you talk about those 2 years. I know you try to do it by year. You won't get much interest, but I would love to hear you talk about those 2 years. And I know you got a lot on your plate, but I think it will be 2 great years to talk about. Those were some of the most controversial. I know some people might say Michigan and Nebraska, and I think 96, 97 year.
Yeah.
But everybody know. I mean, Miami in 2001 would have. I think it was Oregon that everybody thought they should play. They would have murdered Oregon too, just like they did Nebraska. But I would love to see you talk about those 2 years, because I think those 2 of the most controversial years in college football history.
Yeah, well, it was just it was just so crazy back then when you consider that a team like BYU would win the national championship playing a team that was 6-5 in a bowl game. That's just unfathomable to think that we would award a national championship to a team that just beat a team that was probably about the 50th best team in the country. And they still that was a struggle to win that game. It was 17 all late in that game before they scored the game-winning touchdown to beat Michigan at the Holiday Bowl 24-17. And all that said and done, Michigan might have been the best team that they played the whole season. And that was like the worst Michigan team going back to the mid 60s. And then, of course, in 1990, we had the controversy that Georgia Tech, the ACC, was really watered down at that point. That was pre-Florida State and, of course, pre-Miami and Boston College and some of those other schools. So the ACC was not very good at that point in 1990. And Georgia Tech, again, because of the bowl seedings and the way the bowls were structured, played a Nebraska team that was ranked like 12th or 13th in the country in the Citrus Bowl, and they won a split of the national championship. But yeah, we could go through that. That would be interesting. I remember all that very well. I think I remember those games better than I do the ones last year.
UVA and Clemson that year. And
yes.
Both of those are pretty good teams because Clemson destroyed Illinois that year too, right?
Yeah, I think it was 30-0.
Right. And UVA was really good. I think the Herman brothers were there at that time. And because that was the first time Virginia had beat Clemson ever, I think. And like 30 years or something like that year. But I'd love to hear you talk about it. Want to let some other folks get on and talk about it. I'll be on here all night listening to you talk, man.
All right. I got it written down here, 1984 and 1990. Again, I remember those seasons just, it's almost easier for me to talk about those seasons than it is like last season. Because when you're young, you just soak it up and it means so much to you and you just never forget it. But yeah, that's right. Memorable stuff. That's good stuff. Thanks, DeAndre. I appreciate you calling.
Yes, sir.
You have a great night.
Good night.
Our man DeAndre, he loves the Clemson Tigers. He loves to talk about college football history, the ACC. We can hear that he's keeping up on recruiting, and he works 80 hours a week. I don't know how he gets it all in. So thanks so much for joining Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Chuck Chillout has made another contribution, so I've got to answer his questions. Chuck, thank you so much. I appreciate it. What are my thoughts on the transfer portal? Will it eventually be bad for college football? The answer would be yes. If it continues the way that it tore players from teams this past season, yes, that's going to be bad for college football. I don't know in what way, because when you think about it, everyone only has so many scholarships and roster spots. So it's not like Alabama and Clemson and Ohio State can say, we're going to rip all the good players away from everybody. It's not going to be that egregious. But my goodness, when these kids can't hang around a school for 2 or 3 years, when they can't compete for a job, what are they going to do in the workplace? And that's a whole other side of it. But in regards to the structure of college football, I have often gotten on here and bragged about the purity of college football from the standpoint that if we know that one of the main aspects of college football that makes it so great is that the rivalries are just stellar. The pageantry, the prestige, the brand, the history, the traditions within these programs, and then when they match up against their rivals. So take that to the next level. Take that to the NFL. If you're a fan of the Pittsburgh Steelers, you hate the Cincinnati Bengals and the Cleveland Browns and the Baltimore Ravens. If you're a Dallas Cowboys fan, of course, you hate the rest of the NFC East, but especially the Washington Redskins. But what invariably happens is that you have players on your team that will either move on and play for your arch rival, or you have players on your team that came from your arch rival. It's inevitable. There's player movement in the pros. Well, we haven't seen that in college. If you're an Ohio State fan, the thought of having a player on your team who played at Michigan or will go and play at Michigan and play against you, and that's taking it to an extreme, but the thought of your favorite players playing at other schools, I was going to do a video on this. As these transfers continue throughout the off season, look at the major programs that have a quarterback playing for them that played somewhere else. If we went through the top 25 programs in the country right now, I'm going to guess a third of them have a quarterback, just looking at the quarterback position now, have a quarterback that's starting for them who played somewhere else. So we can no longer, as college football fans, say there's a purity to being a Clemson fan, Ohio State fan, in that we are who we are and they're the enemy, and we will never have those players on our team, and our players will always be the purity and the innocence of, they will always be Michigan players. They will always be USC players. And when they move on to the NFL, that's fine, but they will always be nothing but USC players or whatever the school. We can no longer say that. And now we've gotten to a point where, my goodness, I'm thinking about it and I'm just thinking around the country. Ohio State, Oklahoma, Missouri, Washington, on and on. All these schools have quarterbacks on the field that played for major schools somewhere else. I just don't think that's a good thing. Now, I'd have to think it through in regards to, does this give an advantage to any type of school, any tier of school? Now, you would think that anything that leaves it wide open for everyone, that leaves it almost to free agency style of an approach to player movement, would favor the biggest teams with the most money, with the most resources, that attract the best players. You would think that, although what we have seen, especially again at the quarterback position, because it's unique in college football, it's unique in football because there's only one on the field. So think about that. Justin Fields couldn't win the job at Georgia. He was ranked as the best or second best quarterback and player in the country, as DeAndre mentioned, when he came out. Well, there's only one spot to win a quarterback. And so if you can't win that, then even though I don't like it, and most of you probably don't like it, I do understand. I don't believe in it, this type of work ethic or approach to competition, but I do understand running somewhere else where you think you can win the job. But if you're the number one offensive lineman in the country, you're most likely going to be playing tackle or be listed as a tackle coming into college football. And let's say you sign at Tennessee. They signed a 5-star offensive lineman this past recruiting class. Well, if he doesn't turn out to be their best offensive lineman, he's still going to be playing. They may move him to guard or may have to move him over to the right tackle position. So quarterback's unlike any other position in that you have to win the job. The other positions, okay, you're the running back and maybe you didn't win the job, but you're still going to get 8 or 10 carries a game in relief of the other running back. Or maybe you're a pass catching specialist who's going to get some playing time because you're going to catch 40 or 50 passes a year. Every other position is multiple players. So we're seeing this most likely most at quarterback. And that's, of course, gaining the most attention because they're the most marquee of players and gain the most attention and publicity. But man, in just surveying the best programs, the elite teams, we see it all over the place. LSU, Michigan, transfer quarterbacks. Miami, if Tate Martell, as expected, is given a waiver to play for 2019. I hope that answers your question. I took it from a fan's perspective. I don't know. It's almost like being an NFL general manager and trying to figure out personnel versus money and what are the best decisions to make. I would really have to grind it down in regards to scholarships and how this could help or hurt certain programs and types of programs. but I don't really see any particular trend there. It's helping and hurting both the elite and the lesser programs. Now, when something happens like it did at Virginia Tech, where they lost their best wide receiver, their best running back, and their quarterback, I don't know what's going on there. That doesn't seem to make sense because those guys were in line for substantial playing time. They were the incumbents at their positions, and there were, to my knowledge, no hotshots coming in from high school football to take their jobs. And again, especially at running back and wide receiver, where you use multiple players, that just is starting to look like not the healthiest of locker rooms and situations at Virginia Tech. And we may need to dive into that and bring on some of our trusted Virginia Tech contributors to talk about the situation with the Hokies. All right. I am way behind here. Sean Walsh. Welcome to Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, Sean. We appreciate your input. This is the first time I've seen your handle, and that's my customary welcome to anyone that I have not seen before. So I would like to know how long you've been watching. I assume that you're all about Sparty, a Michigan State fan. What's your prediction for Michigan State next year? So I just finished making my notes on Big Ten coaches and ranking the coaches in the Big Ten, as I just finished cutting the video. How many notes I took on the ACC coaches. 25-minute video on ACC coaches rankings. So I did the same in the Big Ten, and I had difficulty ranking Mark D'Antonio because I have great respect for Mark D'Antonio, but it just appears as though this program has hit its peak and it's starting to level off. So, of course, they had the aberration 2 years ago at 3-9, and then bounced back at 10-3, although that was a bit of a mirage. Sure, they played well. They finished at 9-3 in the regular season, but they were seriously outclassed by Ohio State in particular that season. And now it really appears as though Michigan and Penn State have overtaken Michigan State. Now they're coming off a 7-5 campaign, 7-6 with a bowl loss to Oregon. So this is their second down season in 3 years. After winning Rose Bowls and Cotton Bowls and finishing in the top 5 in the nation and winning multiple Big Ten championships from 2009 to 2015 when they went to the college football playoff. I think Michigan State is settling into an area of a fringe top 25 program. That's how it appears. The recruiting rankings would tell us that the talent coming into the system is not exceptional. So without looking at the specific personnel for this year, and as you well know, Sean, the football team that you had last season was supposed to achieve and compete for a Big Ten Eastern Division championship. You had, based on your depth chart, either 20 or 21 starters coming back out of 22 spots. Starting quarterback, one of the best wide receiving units in the Big Ten. And sure, you were hit with injuries, especially at wide receiver and at the offensive line spot. But that's another concern. Michigan State has not produced good offensive linemen over the past few years. Sure, they've had a few go on to the NFL, especially at the center position. But these have not been dominant Michigan State rushing attacks over the past, really, 2015. In making the college football playoff, that might have not been the best result for Michigan State that year. They were certainly not prepared to play Alabama, did not have the talent level to play Alabama, and that might have worked into the psyche against this football program. And that was not a good rushing team. They did not have a mobile quarterback with Connor Cook, and we saw the result. They were basically one-dimensional. They could only throw the ball downfield, and because the offensive line could not protect against that Alabama front, and they did not have the support of the running game, that was really the first time we saw, okay, Michigan State doesn't have a dominant running game, and they're going up against Alabama. And that was kind of the end of an era in Michigan State football that they've not recovered from. And those teams that won the Rose Bowl over Stanford and the Cotton Bowl over Baylor and beat Georgia in the Outback Bowl and were winning 11 and 12 games and finishing in the top 5 in the country, those were dominant rushing attacks. And they've not been able to duplicate that. They have had porous offensive line play at Michigan State in recent years, and that's not what you would expect out of Mark D'Antonio. Now, the defense, of course, was really good this past season, but the offensive line was really bad. I would expect Michigan State. I've not looked at the schedule to see who they play in the Big Ten Western Division. Of course, they get a visit from Arizona State. They should 55-45 possibly. Maybe home field advantage gives them the edge over ASU, but that's a bit of a toss-up. But they should win that game and then win the 3 non-conference games, go 5-4 in the Big Ten, and go 8-4. That would be my projection off the top of my head. Brian Lewerke back at quarterback. I can't think of the kid that replaced him late in the season. Shoot, what's his name? Man, I watch Michigan State play almost every game. So you can trust me on that, Sean. I watch Michigan State play a lot of football. Saw the Ohio State game, the Michigan game, the Penn State game. Kind of tailed off at the end of the season. They played Rutgers and Maryland late. I didn't see those games, but I saw them play Arizona State. I saw the Indiana game. Who'd they play in the West? I saw some of the Nebraska game in the snow. They lost 9-6, I believe. I saw the Purdue game the week after Purdue beat Ohio State, then went to East Lansing and lost. So I watch a lot of Michigan State football every year. I usually see them play 8 or 9 games. And yeah, they were not ultra talented on defense, but very sound, very good, very tough, hard-nosed, tenacious, as they typically are. And the secondary play I thought was better than it had been the past few seasons. But I'll go 8-4, Sean. As of right now, that's not the official prediction. All right, we got Richard Neal on board, along with Shankopotamus. Welcome to Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, Shankopotamus. We appreciate your contribution here, talking about Boise State and Alabama. But I like to welcome everybody that I see for the first time on the live chat, and welcome to Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. It's our aim. Now, we can't deliver each and every time, but it's my aim to deliver the best debate, discussion, and analysis online concerning the sport we love. Swampy McGee, does Ohio State still have a basketball program? Thank you, Sean, for the question. I love talking Michigan State. We don't do that enough here. I used to talk a lot of Michigan State, but I don't have any Michigan State guests. And unfortunately, maybe you can help me on this one, Sean. Bring Michigan State people here. If you have Michigan State family and friends, if you have social media acquaintances who are Michigan State fans or college football fans in general, bring them here. Because when I post a Michigan State video, it gets like 70 views. Nobody watches it. And unfortunately, I've got to be a bit of a businessman. I want to talk Michigan State football. I want to talk about the Michigan State Indiana game I just watched, but it's kind of difficult when nobody watches those videos. But we know there are Michigan State fans out there. They get 2 to 3 million people watching the games on TV and 65 to 70,000 people in the stands. People care about Michigan State football somewhere. So bring them to Mark Rogers TV. All right. All right. La Potencia, do you think Nick Bosa is the best non-quarterback in the upcoming draft? Wow. Which reminds me, we need to get started on the NFL draft, don't we? Need to get working on that. Let's get our guy Rick Saratella. Man, I really love the kid from Kentucky, uh, Jones. Can't think of his name. Josh. Wow, I'm drawing a blank. Josh Jones. Josh. Wow, I'm blanking out on his name. The kid from Kentucky, the defensive end. I think he's exceptional. Love how he plays. The best non-quarterback in the draft. Yeah, you got to think that he's been checked out physically and the core is strong and he's ready to go. I know that I saw the measurables the other day, as you probably did as well, in seeing Josh Allen. Thank you. Why? I kept thinking Josh Allen, but that's the name of the center. They had all those Allens go through Michigan State, and I thought I was just having a flashback since I had been talking about Michigan State. They had Jack Allen, and I forget all their other names. All those Michigan State offensive linemen. I think 3 consecutive centers at Michigan State are all from the Allen family. And so as soon as somebody asked me about that, I thought Josh Allen, Kentucky. Then I thought you're just thinking Allen because you've been talking about Michigan State's offensive line. So that's why I was mixing him up with the Jones kid at Kentucky, who's also a really good player. All right. Yes. Thank you, Adam. Chankopotamus, let's discuss the Gophers. Will they win 8 games this year? Man, what a turnaround for Minnesota football. Consider that they went 7-6, 3-6 in the Big Ten. They were at one point, I think I noted this when I did my notes for the Big Ten coaches. And I will not tell you where I ranked PJ Fleck. Last year, they lost to Maryland by 29. Maryland by 29. Illinois put up 55 points and beat Minnesota by 24. And they lost to Nebraska, gave up 53 points and lost by 25. They fired Rob Smith, got him out of there. They just were a different team. They beat Purdue by 31 points. They played a very respectable game against Northwestern and lost by 10, 24-14. They were only down by 3 late in that game. And then they just trampled Wisconsin by 22 points to win the Axe for the first time in 15 years. And then consider this. And some of you guys get sick of me harping on this when I look at bowl matchups and bowl games, but Minnesota was the 10 seed out of the Big Ten at 3-6. They were playing the 5 seed in the ACC, Georgia Tech at 5-3, and they walloped them 34-10. So yes, things are looking up for Minnesota, and as you well know, with the new facilities there, they hope to draw a higher range of recruits. Now, for next season, I'm not going to look at the schedule because all this is going to come out eventually. I am going to give my predictions for the season. And even before my official August predictions are going to be my schedule rankings and projections. So it's coming soon. But off the top of my head, not knowing who Minnesota has to tangle with in the Big Ten Eastern Division, I know that they've got a difficult trip out to Fresno State, a team that they beat by a touchdown 21-14 last year at home. But of course, Fresno State won the Mountain West Conference. So I'm going to guess they lose that game and go 2-1 out of conference and go 4-5 in the Big Ten. So 6-6 again for Minnesota and on to postseason play. Off the top of my head, without doing much research, shoot, I can't even think of the quarterback's name that replaced Zanikstead. That I was impressed with him. Not Tyler Johnson. He's the wide receiver. The quarterback in Minnesota. I lose names in the offseason if I don't have him in front of me, especially when I'm trying to keep track of 130 teams or at least 65. But the kid that took over for Zanikstead, I thought he ran the offense well. I thought he did his job. All right. Auburn record. Well, I believe Auburn's got a difficult schedule this year. Of course, they've got to deal with the SEC Western Division. They've got Oregon, neutral site. And of course, they've got Georgia. And I believe they also have to play Florida. Auburn's record this year is going to be 8-4. Yes, at Florida. Yes, tough schedule. Shankopotamus, I watched the Gophers beat Fresno State last year and enjoyed watching them the rest of the season. Yeah, that must have been fun to see after that horrible start to the season, them finish with, 4 wins in 5 games or 3 out of 4 and a respectable loss against Northwestern, but to win a bowl game by 24 points when you didn't think you were going to get to a bowl game. It was a very successful stretch drive for PJ Fleck. Swampy, what do we got here? I've lost track of let's see if you guys have any other questions. Guys are talking basketball. My dark horse Heisman contender for next year. Okay. Heisman contender. Well, with the development of the Michigan wide receiver core, I do still have some faith in Shea Patterson. I thought he played well most of last season. The bowl game was rough. He was missing his running game. Shea Patterson, if you consider that a dark horse, is that a dark horse? Jacob Eason's a dark horse in Washington, don't you think? Does Khalil Tate get back into the running after a very uneven first season for Kevin Sumlin? Jake Fromm. I don't know if you consider these guys dark horses. They're frontline players. Let's get off the quarterbacks and think elsewhere. Miles Sanders would have been a good selection, but he left Penn State. Would we consider J.K. Dobbins a dark horse? I think not, although he had a down year last year. Of course, Jonathan Taylor's going to be a front runner. Travis Etienne's going to be a front runner. Justin Herbert's going to be a front runner. You talk about a real dark horse. How about Stephen Carr at USC? How about Tyler Vaughn's at USC? Those are some dark horses for you. Sam Ehlinger is going to have a lot of attention. Not a dark horse. I wouldn't consider him a dark horse, but beyond the favorites of Tua, Trevor Lawrence, Jalen Hurts, Justin Fields. I just named about 10 players, so we're going about 15 deep or so. Yeah, there you go. How about Kalen Laybourne at Florida State? There's a dark horse. Okay. All right. Does Maryland regret joining the Big Ten, courtesy Swampy McGee? I don't think they do. From a financial standpoint, I think the people at Maryland, meaning the administration and the boosters and the people that count money, dollars, we don't do that because we look at, okay, how successful were you as a football or basketball program and what's your status now? And of course, Maryland football has gone down the tubes because they've played a little bit better competition. And also it's coincided with them slumping as well. The basketball, I really can't speak to. I know that their basketball program, obviously under Lefty Driesell, going way back, was great. And then they slumped. And of course, Gary Williams had a good run at Maryland. And then, of course, they went to and won the national championship in 2002. But the basketball team's been good in the Big Ten. That's about all I can speak to there. But I would think that it still doesn't seem right to me. Maryland still has a feel of an ACC school. When they left, they were the northern portion of the ACC. Now that they would be completely surrounded by ACC schools, from the traditional schools of the ACC in the south, and to the north from Syracuse and Pitt and Boston College. Yeah, Maryland to me has an ACC feel. Still does. Still, they're in the Atlantic coast. They are the Atlantic coast. They are the mid-Atlantic coast region, Maryland and DC. All right. Anything else? Swampy McGee throwing all sorts of stuff out here. Texas A&M wants who for college basketball coach? All right. Swampy McGee getting after it. All right, Richard Neal, let's clean up some baseball history for you. Yes, Catfish Hunter did pitch for the Oakland A's starting in 1968. He pitched a perfect game in 1968. He started with the A's in 65 or 66. He left the A's in 75 to go to the New York Yankees. He played way before those other two guys, Jose Canseco and Ricky Henderson. Didn't play with those guys. All right, everyone. Appreciate you guys jumping on board. Remember that we've got a helmet vote to take care of. So if you missed it, from now until April 15th, tax day, so that is one full month from March 15th through April 15th, we are taking your votes on what helmets to add. So keep in mind what helmets we currently have, which the count from the Pac-12 is USC and Washington. From the Big 12, it's Oklahoma and Texas. It is Ohio State, Wisconsin, and Michigan from the Big 10. It's Alabama, LSU, Florida, Ole Miss, and I think I missed somebody. Alabama, LSU, Ole Miss, Tennessee, and Florida from the SEC. It is Miami, Florida State, and Clemson right on the top row because I just did a record on the Clemson or the ACC coaches. So those are the three helmets we have from the ACC. Then we've got Notre Dame and, of course, Kent State University. Sorry, LSU. So we've got the alma mater there, the Golden Flashes, home of Jack Lambert, Lou Holtz, Josh Cribbs, Jerome Harrison, Antonio Gates, Julian Edelman, Super Bowl MVP. So we are going to add at least 2 helmets. So give us your votes. Not here, not in the live chat, but in the comments section of any of the videos. All right. I believe I've caught everything. Thank you so much, everyone, for contributing here on the live chat and to the super chat as well. I appreciate it so much. This is the place to be for discussion, debate, and analysis on college football. More coaches' rankings are coming. I'm going to deliver more player profiles on the top high school football players in the 2020 class. And then DeAndre's given me some homework to do as well on the 1984 and 1990 college football seasons and national championship races. And also we could match up quarterbacks from the ACC and the SEC. And I'm going to rank all the schedules in the Power 5. All right. I got my work cut out for me. We will see you guys soon, Auburn football. I appreciate you jumping on board and contributing because, again, this is the first time I've seen you on board, and everybody else, thank you so much. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Thank you for making it what it is. It's not me, it's us. Without you, this dies. So thank you so much. We will see you soon. Seriously? I was signing off and somebody's going to call me. That's all right. That's why I'm here. It's Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's George. How you doing?
Hey, George, I'm doing just fine. You know, I signed off, George.
Did you really already?
I'm just kidding. Yes, I signed off. I was done. I didn't have anything else to say. I went through all the comments, at least the meaningful comments, people that wanted to ask me something. But hey, you caught me just in time, and I'm glad you did. What's going on?
Well, I was on Alonzo 1219's channel, and I pulled down on my screen, and I saw you were broadcasting, and I instantly clicked off and came over here. So here I am.
Well, thank you so much. I'm about ready to click off, so you can go catch Zoe. Zoe texted me yesterday, and he had some facts about the ACC versus the SEC, and I asked him to bring those on the show, and we would do a live stream and talk up the ACC and the SEC, and I would clarify a few things maybe for him.
Yeah, that would be interesting to see. Maybe they got some data I don't know about.
Well, he had some data, and I think he read an article, and I appreciated him doing his research, but there were a few things that weren't quite factual. So
yeah, and I would it's not going to work anyway. Dan Mullen will just tell his team to pretend they're Georgia Tech or Pittsburgh, and we'll beat them anyway, you know?
Is that what you think Dan Mullen does in the locker room? Pretend that you're Pitt or Georgia.
Hey, the ACC has a hold over the SEC, so just pretend you're Pittsburgh.
Georgia Tech was one time in the SEC.
God, you know, I'm just a guy sitting at home in Oregon, and I can't believe I got involved in this internet football shit. Those Miami fans are ruthless. I'm glad they don't know where I live. That's all I can say.
Yeah. Oregon, fortunately, is a big state. You need to keep it no more specific than that.
Exactly. If they invite me down for a beer at a local bar, I'm not going.
It's about a 5-hour drive or about a 5-day drive, but I guess they could make it up there and get after you.
Hey, my brother had a fight with some guys in Miami once, and they flew to Oregon, and we lived on a rural farm in a rural community, and I swear to God, 2 carloads of, I'm not going to name the ethnic type they were, but they drove down this 2-mile road to our farm, and the farmer that owned the farm walked out there with his 5 sons with shotguns and rifles and sent them back to Florida. They really are. They actually did that. They came all the way to Oregon over a drug deal to like kill people, you know?
Okay, well, so, that sounds pretty extreme.
It doesn't have to do with football, but it's not that far away, you know? It's right there, just a couple hours on an airplane, you know?
Oh, yeah. It's a small world. It can be.
Yep. Anyway,
George, you've been tearing up the you've been tearing up the comments section, so I appreciate that. You know, I featured you on my last comments response video. Did you see that?
I tore it up in the comment section after that, making jokes.
Oh, I know you do. You never let me down.
Yeah, that was awesome.
How is Zoe doing over there?
Listen, Miami fans are a bunch of snowflakes. You know what I mean? You say one little thing and they go all sideways. You can't even talk to them.
Well,
they take it all personally.
They've been good to me, George.
No, I know. I mean, I like them from that point of view, but I'm just saying, say one thing, anything. They're just like, there's thousands of them getting on you, you know?
All right, George. Man, thanks for calling. I appreciate it.
It's good.
Yep.
It's good for football, Mark.
Yes, that's why we're here, to talk it up. And that leads to a little debate, a little discussion, a little argument at times. That's okay.
It's better than talking about chemtrails and vaccinations and earthquakes.
Yeah, there's a lot of horrible stuff going on out there. It's a strange world. It's an odd world, and it's a dangerous place, unfortunately.
That's really why I do this, just to be friendly and have fun. You know, when people ask me what I did at the end of the world, I want to be able to say I contributed.
We're having a little fight right now between a Miami fan, Dennis Wilson, and NCIS Fanatic 21, the Ohio State fan. They're going back and forth for some reason.
Dennis Wilson is my brother. He's just from Miami. He tries. He's really in there fighting in the trenches.
Is he? Yeah, we like having Dennis on. All right, sir.
All right.
Keep making those comments. I appreciate it, man. You're helping me so much.
Alonzo just hit 7,000 subscribers. What are you at?
I'm at 8920 is the count.
Yes. God damn. When you get to 10,000, it becomes exponential. It's 50,000, 100,000 after that.
Well, it's funny, George, because we've had these discussions in the past, and I thought the other night, man, I really need to get serious about the business end of this. I just keep cranking out this college football content, and that's not going to get me anywhere. I need to back off a little bit. And I started watching these guys that talk about this is how you get 100,000 subscribers. And that was one of the things that they said. They said, when you get to 10,000, then YouTube is going to be much kinder to circulating those videos. They said that there are 5,000 channels. This is how many YouTube channels there are, that there are 5,000 channels that have 1 million subscribers. And then they said that if you get to 10,000 subscribers, you're in the top 10% of YouTube channels with 10,000 subscribers.
I didn't know that.
So I tried to pick up some of their...
I knew it was a magic number. It is a magic number. Yeah, you need to get there.
Yeah, I'm trying. I was going strong there, and over the last couple of weeks, man, I've just stalled. But it's the off season, and that happens. You have plateaus at times, so that's the way it is.
Yeah. If you ever get ultra famous, you paid your dues. I witnessed it. It really does. It's a grind. It's a grind getting to 10,000.
It is.
To get to 20,000 to 100,000.
It's a grind. Or I could have my mom appear on, let's see, Full House, and I could wear makeup and talk about jewelry, and I could have 3 or 4 million subscribers. You know who I'm talking about, right? Yeah.
At least there you go. Starting to understand. Yeah.
And I could get
you could do a 5-minute you could do a 5-minute intro with Megadeth or something.
Yeah, we could certainly,
before the show starts.
We could go the gimmick route. We could certainly do that.
Right.
All right.
I just get past that. When I get there, unless I want to listen to Uncle Lou's music, you know.
Yeah, we will make it work. We will get there somehow.
Uncle Lou made the perfect mix between bullshit and football. You know that, right? You see that. You've seen his shit, right? It's the perfect mix.
Yep.
It's tongue-in-cheek, serious, and and sensationalism. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, George, I appreciate it. Thanks for the call.
On behalf of the people in Iowa and Nebraska, thank you for being there, because no one else is talking about them. Well,
I fill a void, but if nobody's going to watch that stuff, then it's not going to last long. All right, sir. We'll catch you later.
Be the last man standing.
I appreciate it,
All
man.
right, later.
Have a good one.
Bye.
All right. I think we're finally done. Thanks you so much for joining us. There's a few left. So we will see you next time right here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. In the meantime, enjoy the videos. And yes, no BS here, Shankopotamus. Thank you so much.